Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Reptile Barn. I haven't done a video like this in a while, so I wanted to just do kind of a state of the reptile barn kind of video like I do sometimes. And especially because we are coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the reptile barn, which is crazy to me. Um, Not since we officially had like a business license and everything, but we bought our first reptiles for the reptile barn in 2015. We were in the deep planning stages of the reptile barn in 2014. So it's been 10 years or real close to it. So I thought for this video I would talk about a couple of our successes, a couple of our failures, and then some of the choices we've made that have been the best choices and the worst choices. All right. So, right off the bat, I'm just going to let you know this is talking about the reptile barn as a business, right? Um, so, if people talking about the financial side of their animal business is off putting to you, then maybe this isn't the video for you to watch. But I think that there is a culture in the reptile hobby, probably in many others also, but this is the hobby that I'm in, of, somehow your motivations are impure and you're not a true animal lover if you do it for money, right? I disagree with that. I've been very open about that on my channel. So just be aware. I'm going to be talking about some financial things, right? So, successes. The very, very first thing that comes to mind when I think about the reptile barn successes is our sailfin dragons. For whatever reason, there aren't that many people breeding sailfin dragons. There really aren't that many people breeding Philippine sailfin dragons. And me and Caleb spent a couple of years talking to the Scott Corning, some of the people who knew what they were doing and had had a lot of success through the years. We got really good animals and we started trying to breed them, and we tweaked a few things, saw what worked, what didn't work, kept tweaking things, and eventually we've got it down to where we're very successful at breeding these sailfin dragons, and it's a huge part of our business. People who are into that sort of lizard know who we are, not because of the ball pythons or because of the expo or any of these things, but because of sailfin dragons. And being able to expand the captive bred population of sailfin dragons, especially Philippine sailfin dragons, is just so gratifying. And of course it's good for business when you're able to produce an animal that has some pretty high demand and very low supply. That's always good for business too, right? And just branding yourself as becoming known for something like that is also really good for our business. So that comes to mind just right off the bat. Second, and I credit Liz, my wife, much more than myself for this next one. All of my children, including the youngest, who's just not even 2 yet, really don't just have a love for the animals, which of course they do, but they feel some ownership and pride in the reptile barn. They are involved in a shocking amount of what we do. They know how to clean everything in our collection. They're confident handling almost every animal we have. They understand how the feeding works. They understand how the breeding works. They're memorizing, the morphs and the genetics. They're getting more and more interested in how sales work and how customers and videos and advertising, they really feel like they're part of the business. And that was one of the absolute top goals we had, me and Liz, before we even had kids, and we knew we wanted to do something with a family business. And so it's just been a huge blessing watching our kids feel like they are part of the business. that they get to have input when we're making decisions, and that we trust them with a lot of pretty important things. So I consider that a huge success. There's a lot of other things I could name. One other that pops into my head is that the very first ball python that I ever thought, that is just the snake that we must produce. Took me longer than it should, but we now have produced a couple of ultramelpides. They are just incredible. Um, Absolutely incredible. Maybe I'll put one as the thumbnail for this video because I feel like that's a huge success for us. No longer a groundbreaking snake, a double recessive ball python is no longer considered, some crazy thing. But the beauty of that particular combo caught our eye many years ago, and we wanted to make them, and we have made them. So, a couple of failures over the last 10 years. We have had very little success breeding one of our dream animals, which is blue tree monitors. And the little bit of success we did have, one of the babies died while hatching. The other hatched pretty much perfect and drowned. And that was my fault. That was just a mistake, an honest mistake, but a horrible mistake with deadly consequences. I just didn't think about it, never entered my mind. I used a water bowl that was plastic, clear sided. It was, maybe 2 inches deep. Didn't think anything of it, but this is a tiny little lizard, right? And during the night, he'd crawled down to get a drink and fallen in, and he couldn't figure out how to get up and over the lip, and he drowned. And it haunts me to this day. It's been years, and I just can't get over that. Other failures. We've had other animals die, and I could go into that. I feel almost like that would be its own video. We've had, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of animals with the reptile barn. Of course, we've had a couple of them die, and it's devastating every time. It does not get easier, at least for me, in the slightest. We honestly, considering how many customers we've had over the years, we've had very, very good luck, I guess, with customer interactions. I see people in comment sections all the time on videos or Morph Market has their like forum or whatever, just really upset about either a seller they felt did something wrong or a buyer they felt did something wrong. I've had maybe 2 times ever where I had somebody I felt like, did something just really obnoxiously wrong, or even like was trying to do something not legal, right? And I was like, I don't want anything to do with you. What are you talking about? People from other countries offering to smuggle Philippine sailfin dragons to us. I'm like, no, we don't do that crap, you know. However, that being said, we have had a couple of customer interactions go south, or where I was the customer, right, and it was with a buyer that just didn't end well. Never, to the point of like I felt like I was. Well, that's not even true. Yeah, as I'm thinking through this, we've had a couple of times where we felt like we paid for an animal that we didn't get. Sometimes a very expensive animal that we just did not receive, and a couple other things like that. And I can think of one time with a customer also where they were so pushy and obnoxious that we ended up telling them, even though you haven't technically done anything wrong, we don't want to work with you. We don't want to sell an animal to you. And they lost their minds, which I felt validated. I was like, no, I don't want to put my animals in your hands. If you have this kind of insane aggression and temper and threats and just like a pathetic child, So something to keep in mind if you're starting a business is that no matter how careful you are, how well you treat people, how perfect your animals are, whatever the case may be, there's just some stinkers out there. And you are going to have some interactions with them if you are in business for any length of time. And you're the business owner. You can't go to your supervisor and send them out to deal with it. You are the supervisor. You're the manager. You're the owner, right? And so that's really stressful. But that being said, has been unbelievably rare for us. Okay? So, moving on to some decisions, some of our best and some of our worst choices. Let me start with a bad choice, or I should say, a choice that business-wise, being profitable, trying to have good profit margins, trying to be financially successful, terrible choice, okay? And it's an especially terrible choice because it was not an honest mistake. We knew perfectly well, we'd been forewarned, and we just didn't take the advice, and it has bit us. And what I'm getting at is, if you are a smallish breeder, if that is your main revenue, is breeding and selling the animals, right? It makes a lot of business sense to become known for a small handful of projects. Let me give some examples. JD Constriction, they breed ball pythons, and they have focused entirely on Azanthics. All right, and they have the best Azanthics in the world. Of course they do. That's all they do. They pour their heart and soul into coming up with the coolest and best Azanthic combos. That's fantastic, and they are known for that. And they don't have to sell, 3, 4, 5,000 babies, and be a really large scale breeder. They, I don't know what their numbers are, but they are the first person who comes to mind with Azanthics. And I'm pretty sure anyone in the ball python hobby who thinks about Azanthics would say the same thing. Doesn't have to be ball pythons. It could be anything. I searched for a long time for my Savu pythons, and I found Gary at GS Reptiles, and he is having a lot of success with them. They are pretty rare. There's not that many people having success with them. And so he's got a name for himself, among other things. He has some just incredible projects, but he doesn't have, 40 incredible projects. He has a handful, right? So that he can really focus on the quality of those projects. We knew this principle. We were told by people that were smarter than us and had been doing it for a lot longer than us. Oh, you're getting into ball pythons. Don't just buy every single morph that you like. Pick a few and get really good at them. We didn't do that at all. We bought, if there was a morph we really loved, we bought it. Like one of them, right? It's really hard to get ahead on a project when you own one of that gene, right? But we were like, oh, I don't know if we're going to get another opportunity to get this particular combo or whatever. And we just bought the projects that we really, really liked. And then 5 years in, we're looking at our ball python collection and we're like, we've had Desert Ghosts for 5 years and we've produced visual Desert Ghosts and like maybe one combo after 5 years, right? We haven't done hardly anything with it. That's pathetic. What are we doing? And we looked at Ultramel, what we love. We looked at all these things and we're like, we didn't do this right. I'm like, no doubt we didn't do this right. We chose not to do this right. One of the worst decisions we've ever made. However, we own some super cool morphs, right? So you got to have some self-control. They are, the people who are into this hobby, as you guys watching this well know, we're into it because it's freaking awesome to us. We love it. It's exciting. They're gorgeous. They're fascinating. They're riveting. And we just should, we're 10 years in, guys, and only in the last year, okay? Keep in mind, Desert Ghost was the first gene we ever bought in ball pythons 10 years ago. And only last year did we produce some combos that are like really, really cool, right? And even then, it's not like with other recessives or anything. It's just multi-gene incomplete dominance that mix really, really well together. Things we'd specifically been aiming to make last year. That's when we started really getting some. That's really bad, right? These are things we should have made 8 years ago. You know what I mean? We should have been producing double visual Desert Ghost projects with other recessives. We should have had our Desert Ghost pies, our Desert Ghost clowns, things that we're only now scratching the surface of, and we're behind massively. There's Desert Ghost combos with 3 other recessives visually in the snake that some of the best breeders are making. So we've seen the error of our ways, and we're trying to trim down the ball python collection to really focus in on some of our very favorite projects. It's extremely difficult, but that's just a bad choice we made, and I would warn anyone against it. And I'll bet there are people out there right now who probably somewhere in your head you're like, yeah, that might be good advice, and you're not going to take it either, just like we didn't. It's just too difficult to see this gene that you love and you've had your eye on forever, and one becomes, whoops, available, and you don't buy it. That's hard to do. And that goes with species too, not just morphs of a particular species. Don't get in over your head. We hit a point where the size of our collection was as large as we felt safe managing. Like, we're not going to be able to take good care of these animals if we get more of them. So now when we add animals, like this incredibly gorgeous little desert king snake, we have to sell a different animal. We can't just keep growing the numbers, right? We have to replace something that we already had. So let me talk real briefly, or at least mention 2 decisions we've made that have been superb, and then I'll let you go. This is already a really long video, but I wanted to kind of look back through some of the things we've done in the last 10 years. 2 great choices. 1, starting the expo. One of the best decisions we've ever made. Alaska didn't, there were people who did gatherings and small shows. I don't want to say we're the first ever Alaskans to ever do an expo, but on any sort of scale where other hobbyists felt like there's enough people coming, I could do this as a business. I could, get a business license, scale up, and really like launch my hobby forward. We kind of began the expo in 2019, and now it's freaking awesome. Thousands of people come every year. We do 2 a year now, and Alaska does not have a big population. So we really were nervous that it wasn't going to work out, and it totally worked out. We love it. It's good for the community. It's good for the reptile community up here, which is very tight knit. A lot of people have started their reptile businesses up here because they felt like they had a place to make sales and to get their name out there and publicize themselves, which is the expo. And we've made a ton of friends through doing the expo too. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and this we knew from the very beginning we wanted to do, we rely not on the internet, including Facebook groups, which can have a lot of good things about them, for anything. We rely on mentors. When there is a species we want to get into, we do what it takes to create a connection with somebody who is an expert with that species, so that we have somebody that we can ask all our questions to. We can get recommendations for breeders to buy from in that species, including that mentor themselves, of course. And it has been a lifesaver for us. I have seen people have so much frustration relying on the internet to get their information, because that's the age we live in, right? And it's so difficult. The negativity, it's not just that there's misinformation, the negativity, people who will just leap down your throat for anything, is so difficult to wade through. It can be hard to find a mentor with any given species. A lot of the best don't have time or interest in mentoring someone new, but some of them do, and it is worth every second of effort, every drop a sweat. Like, find those people, get in their good graces somehow, and it will save you so much stress. And yeah, that is that. I am grateful that we've been able to stay on YouTube for years now, and that you guys are still watching after all this time. Um, I mean, I don't know if it's the same audience that was watching back at the beginning. Hey, you're okay. It's about time to put this little guy back. I think he's about had it. Um, but we have enjoyed this hobby enormously, enormously. It's impossible to express how much we are so grateful for everyone who has bought animals from us, who's come to the expo, who has given us advice, who sold animals to us, who watches our videos, just everything. It's been a joy to be in this hobby. So here's to 10 more fantastic years, and whatever comes after that. I um, think that this video has gone too long, but if any of you are still hanging around, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we're the Reptile Barn.